He was hungry when the voice called to him, speaking in the old tongue. The pull was irrevocable, like a chain looped around his throat pulled taut. Snarling, he answered the call and rose through fire and stone into a dark hallway. A scent on the air met his flaming nostrils, a scent he had not smelled for years uncounted. A shout and a glimmer of metal in the gloom, and he knew with complete certainty that he was called to deal with this pitiful little thing. Like damnation, he swept toward the small bearded creature, claws extended. It tried to defend itself, but claws flashed and blood filled the air. The hunger inside him rose. His heat made the stones sweat. The little figure stumbled back, clutching at his side, but there was a gleam in the thing's eyes. Was that hatred? Good little bug. Feel what you feel. He would crush the life from it and consume its soul. He charged again, expecting a weak little thing, but the creature rushed to meet him. The axe hummed in the air, and as it pierced his hide, he howled. Spell-blessed metal. How did this little thing get such a trinket? Hunger turned to fear as the little thing grinned and spat words in its guttural tongue. He must be quick to pluck the strand of this bug's life. Forward he leapt, fangs bared, but too late, he realized. The little bug was ready. The spell-blessed metal bit again, and this time he howled back to the depths. Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures as we continue our mini-series of Tales of the Burned Stones. Last time, Xarfal discovers a figure in a cocoon of webs on the wall, and he discovers that that figure is dead. So he cuts the old man down and tries searching his body, but comes up with nothing more than a sense of dread as the man's flesh churns. He drags the body over to the spider, covers both in as much webbing as he can, and lights them on fire. Then he leaves the cavern as the bodies begin to burn. Finding an alcove, he rests and is undisturbed. Once he wakes, he returns to the spider cavern and searches for clues. He doesn't find anything except for a pair of vials that seem to contain some sort of inferno. Continuing on, he comes to a locked dwarven door that requires a gift to open. He considers and finally places the copper bangles that he wears on his wrists into the slot on the door. It opens and he enters a massive cavern that is clearly marked by dwarven make. But as he walks to the edge of the platform that he's on, he sees that the roof above him is cracked open and molten lava pours down into the great dwarven hall below. Xarfal Brightwind is standing on this platform looking down onto this ornately built dwarven hall that is marred by this flow of lava that is falling down and has burned through the stone roof of this dwarven hall and has created a magma pool down there. And even here in this place, the light that is being cast by this lava is enough to see that there are remnants of ash piles down by this hall. And so Xarfal is looking at this. He looks up at the roof above where the lava is coming through, and it's clear that stone has given way and this lava is not meant to be flowing down and creating this pool in the center of this dwarven hall. So he looks up at it and he says,
"That is an unfortunate circumstance, and one that I do not think was intended. The stone must have given way during the cataclysm."
And then he looks down and he calls out and says,
"Hello? Is anyone down there?"
His voice echoing in this cavern. He waits for a moment, but the sound of the magma falling is very much like the sound of a waterfall. And there is a cacophony within this cavern that drowns out his voice. So Xarfal looks around. He sees that this platform that he's standing on, there is a bridge that crosses to the other side. It is out of the flow of magma. So it is still intact, but he would definitely have to walk close to that flow of magma in order to get to the other side, where there is a set of stairs that descend down towards where the Dwarven Hall is. Xarfal makes his way across this platform towards this set of stairs that descend down towards the Dwarven Hall. And as he's walking, he can feel the intense heat coming from this flow of magma. There is especially a point at which he is the closest to it that he is going to get on this bridge across this chasm, and he can feel the heat just radiating off the flow, and it's starting to blister his skin. And so he pulls up his cloak and he shields his face from it a little bit, and he hurries past. It's only a moment, but the intense heat makes his head throb, and it is hard for him to catch his breath as he gets to the other side. And finally, that heat relieves a little bit. Now, because there is an open flow of magma that is falling into this cavern, this whole cavern is just warm in general. And so when he gets to the stairs and he begins to descend, the walls are sweating, and the stones underneath his feet are wet and slick. And so it takes him time as he carefully makes his way down this descending flight of steps down towards the Dwarven Hall. Once he reaches the bottom, he emerges onto this plain at the base of this cavern. And there are a set of steps that then lead up towards this Dwarven Hall. And there are tunnels that lead off in different directions down here that would clearly lead to other parts of the Dwarven Kingdom. And I think Xarfal, looking around, knows that this is the Great Hall, the meeting place for the Dwarven Kingdom. And most likely this is the place where the Great Forge would be housed. There are other caverns underneath Mount Baram that would hold housing for the dwarves, that would hold armories, that would hold dining halls, all sorts of different things. And so he looks around at some of those tunnels. He doesn't see any signs of activity. So I think he is going to head up the steps and make his way up to see if there is any information that he can find in the hall, even just to see how far that magma flow is progressing. Because I think he's looking at it, and from his vantage point where he was up top, it looks as though the magma has turned the stone molten and is creating a sort of basin where it's catching it. And so I think in his mind, he's wondering if there's a chance that eventually that bowl is going to overflow and that magma is going to run down into these other tunnels. And if so, he's going to have to work quickly. So he makes his way up the steps and he works his way through the outer edges of this Dwarven Hall. And as he passes through the first archway on the exterior, he can see that there are more signs of ash just everywhere in here. And there are some piles of ash that look as though they probably belonged to dwarves who were here. Xarfal says,
I wonder if they were in the midst of forging when this cataclysm came. And if so, if this fall of lava activated some reagents, because this room does not seem as though it should be in this state, and yet it appears as though something detonated in this room. What other things might be here that this magma might ignite? I must go quickly.
And then again he raises his voice and says,
Hello! Is anyone here?
And he continues his exploration of the halls. So let's ask a question of the Oracle. Does he find anyone here in this open hall? I think it's very unlikely, so I'll roll a d4. A 2 is a no and. So he looks around the outskirts of this dwarven hall, and it does look as though an explosion happened here. There are stones scattered about. There are pieces of metal that have melted and twisted. There is ash imprinted on the walls. As he makes his way inward, he sees that, in fact, that magma is beginning to bubble over, and there are small streams of it running down the sides of the stone basin that's been formed in the center of this hall. And he looks at that and says,
I wonder how long this stone will hold. It is possible that this entire hall will be flooded with magma. I wonder if that is why there are no dwarves here. For if they are aware that this is happening, perhaps they have already retreated to higher ground. I must go quickly.
And then he is going to search very briefly for any sign of passage around those tunnels, because he is looking for those mages and he has not yet picked up their trail. So I'm going to have him roll on his ability to determine whether or not he can find tracks. Because he's a pathfinder, I'm going to roll with good position on this. So when looking for a way through unfamiliar terrain, maybe bending that a little bit to include looking for tracks, but he's definitely in unfamiliar terrain. So we're going to roll it one step higher. So I'd be rolling my willpower, which I think I've kind of determined is my perception stat that I want to use. And it is a d4, but because we're rolling with a good position, I'm going to roll it as a d6. So here we go. A 3 on the dice. So you succeed, but there is a minor complication. So Xarfal is looking around at these various tunnels. And I think the minor complication here is that he finds a set of tracks that are clearly not dwarven boot prints, but are in fact softer, human-shaped soles. He finds these tracks, but the complication is that the tunnel that they enter is one that descends down, whereas there are other tunnels around here that very clearly ascend up. And so I think Xarfal, looking at that and then looking back at the hall and that stream of lava that is flowing down from the ceiling, says to himself,
Oh dear, so these mages have descended down. That is unfortunate for me. I must hurry to catch up, lest I be caught in this flow of magma.
And without delay, he is going to descend into that tunnel and begin pursuing the tracks that he found. Now, he's already a day or two behind on this because, he died. and had to get resurrected. And, we'll say that happened yesterday. So busy day for Xarfal. And then early this morning, he woke up and made his way here from that small village, explored. He had to take a rest in the middle of that. It's probably like late evening of that second day so far. And so Xarfal is going to descend down this tunnel and make his way deeper into Mount Baram. Couple of questions, I think, for the question oracle. Does he encounter anyone on his journey down? And I think it's unlikely. So that's a D6. A 3, which is a yes, but. So yes, he's going to encounter someone, but they are dead or they are not friendly. Well, let's roll on the risk oracle, because I think the risk oracle will tell us how bad this is. So I'm going to say that we are currently still at a precarious descriptor with this risk. So I'm going to roll a D6, see what we get. A 5. A 5 plus is the situation is not risky. You simply do it. Okay. So he runs into someone and they're not dangerous to him. Since we got a yes, but on him interacting with someone, I think that the person is either dead or injured or unconscious. And now, a mid-roll ad break. We'll be back to the adventure in just a moment.
His Day of the Dead celebrations are 2 weeks long. He once used a Ouija board to correct its grammar. He once played chess with death. Death suggested they switch to checkers. If he ever mixes an old-fashioned for you, you'll be inspired to write a creepypasta about it. He is Edward October, the best horror narrator you've never heard of.
Horror stories don't always have to be scary. The best ones invoke a mood of foreboding and existential dread. Fear is fleeting. I prefer to be haunted.
For retro horror of impeccable taste, listen to October Pod AM, bi-weekly wherever you get your podcasts. Or watch new videos from October Pod Home Video each month, only on YouTube. Find all of Edward October's links on the World Wide Web at octoberpodvhs.com.
Stay spooky, mes amis.
Xarfal is rushing down this passageway as quickly as he can, and it is descending down deeper into the earth. Then he reaches a point where the tunnel branches, and he sees to the left that is the path that those feet took. But to the right, he hears a low groaning and grunting and pained sounds. And so he holds up his pursuit and he turns to that right tunnel and he draws out his sword, his rapier, and begins making his way down that tunnel, looking carefully ahead. Torch sort of held behind him so that it's casting light ahead, rapier out in front. He only gets maybe 10, 15 feet down this tunnel when he sees a figure slumped up against a wall. It's a dwarf. And as he draws closer, the dwarf weakly holds up his hand, trying to shield his eyes from the light. And with his other hand, it looks like he's grasping for an axe that is laying to the side. Xarfal, still holding the rapier up, says,
"Greetings, friend. What is your name, and what befell you in this place?"
The dwarf turns his head and squints against the flame of the torch. And he sees the rapier and he sees this tall figure standing there. And he says, "Who are you, stranger?"
"Xarfal Brightwind, an adventurer of some name, and I have unfortunately found myself delving into the tunnels beneath Mount Baram in search of Well, I'm on a quest, you might say. Tell me your name, friend, and what has befallen you. Can I lend you aid?
My name, friend, is Your Darkanax. And what you see before you is the broken body of a dwarf who saw his kingdom fall.
I saw the cavern and that flow of magma that fell into the hall. Is that what hurt you?
No, Brightwind. That isn't what hurt me. No, I was on duty, guarding the Highland Gate. When the magma fell, it burned up my family and the others who were in the midst of the Great Forging. I rushed down to see if I could help out, but by the time I got down there was nothing left but ash and destruction. And while I was trying to piece together what I could do, these figures came through one of the tunnels. I called out to them, asked them to stop, but they paid me no mind. They moved past and they went down the tunnel to the lowlands. I pursued, calling out to them, asking them why they were trespassing on dwarven lands. One of them turned around and said something in a funny language. The floor opened up and some critter climbed out of it. It burned like fire. I killed that thing, but not before it got me too.
And at this, it's clear that your Darkanax is struggling to breathe, and his skin is covered in burns, and there's blood dripping from his side. Xarfal sheathes his rapier and crouches down and says,
Friend Darkanax, may I take a moment to examine your wounds? Perhaps I have some salves or supplies that might aid you.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna do anything, but if there's anything you can do, I'd certainly be appreciative.
Right.
And Xarfal is going to pull out whatever supplies he can from his pack and try to bind the wounds of this injured dwarf. I think to do that, again, it's going to be a willpower roll, and it's just a D4. And so I'm kind of wondering if it would be worth tapping into some grit right now, because it sounds like from this dwarf's description that the mages came this way and they summoned some creature from below, and it would certainly be useful to him to have an ally as he continues in his pursuit. Yeah, I think I'm going to roll the grit with this. So that's our D12, and we're going to roll it, and this is going to basically determine how well Xarfal is able to patch up his wounds. 4 on the die, which with a skill check means there's a success, but a minor complication. So I think because it's a success, I would say that Xarfal has some healing salves in his pack, and he pulls them out and he binds yours wounds with these salves and some clean bandages. It takes a little while for him to go over all the wounds and try to treat your as best as possible. Because it's a minor complication, I think that your is going to survive, and Xarfal is not faced with the choice of having to either leave him here to die or essentially drag him back to the village and then come back a couple days later and possibly end up with a very, very cold trail. So I think the minor complication is that it's going to take your some time to rest and recover a little bit. Dwarves are hardy of constitution. He is going to heal, but I think it is going to take him some time to heal. That is time that Xarfal is maybe a little reluctant to take. So I think he patches up Yorer and he says,
There, I hope that feels a little better, my friend.
It does. Feels a little cooler, which I appreciate. My wounds are gonna heal. I can feel it already, thanks to that salve. But it's gonna take me some time to recover.
Yes, and I am hard-pressed with time. You see, I am in pursuit of those same individuals I think that you saw. They're a group of mages who were outside of Mount Baram, but 2 days ago. They enacted some sort of ritual, and then there was a cataclysm that caused the eruption of the mountain. I suspect it is what caused that flow of lava. I do not know if they are the cause, but I think in my heart that they are. I would like to find them and determine why they did what they did, and for what purposes.
Well, that sounds like a mighty dangerous quest, especially if they can summon more of those creatures. Listen, I understand that you're on their trail, and you're looking to follow up on them pretty quick, and I can respect that. But I'd like to go with you. I might need a few more hours of rest before I'm up on my feet. Can you wait that long?
Xarfal looks back the way he came and then says,
Tell me, friend Yora, this tunnel to the lowlands, as you called it, what's down there? And is there anything of use to us down this tunnel?
and he gestures past where Yor is sitting towards the tunnel further on.
Is there anything down that way that might be of use to us that I could go retrieve while you rest? Weapons, more healing salves, anything of use? Other dwarves?
As far as more dwarves, I don't know. I haven't seen any more. I think it's strange that others haven't come out to investigate. It makes me worried that there might be some more magma flows in other parts of the kingdom. As for what's down there, well, let me tell you.
I don't actually know what's down there, so before your Darken Axe tells us what's down there, let's roll on some sparks here. Let's get our theme for what's down this tunnel. Here is 2 and 3. Power. Power is down this tunnel. That's interesting. Let's see what the other tunnel is. 2 and 2. Family. Okay, so I'm actually going to swap. I'm going to say that family is down this tunnel that Yor is in, and power is down the other tunnel. Because I think it makes sense that Yor, having been injured, is trying to crawl his way towards maybe where the dormitories are, where there might be other dwarves who could give him aid. And it makes sense that if the other tunnel leads to power, that is the direction that these mages would be headed. So Yor says,
Well, let me tell you. Down this tunnel here leads back towards the dormitories, where most dwarven homes are. I was hoping to find a few of my kin down that way, see if they could give me some aid, but I couldn't make it any further. Again, it's strange to me that none of them have come this way. Surely they would have heard the commotion or wondered why the Great Fortune was taking so long. I don't know where they are or why they're not coming down this way. As for the other tunnel, well, that's grim news. That leads deeper into the kingdom and down towards the vaults.
The vaults, you say?
Yeah, well, the vaults are where we keep our more precious artifices. Things that we created during our great fortunes that are of greater value and have some arcane power to them.
Ah, this makes sense, friend Yora. Those figures you saw, if they are the same that I am pursuing, and I have no reason to believe they are not, well, they are mages, and so artifacts of arcane power would be of great interest to them, I'm sure. So it is greatly concerning And if I'm already a day behind them, who knows what they might have accomplished in that time?
That's mighty frightening news. Well, I can say this, the vaults are not gonna be easy for even mages to get into. We like to keep our things safe, so it might take them some time to get through those doors.
It might take them time, but these mages together, if what I understand about the situation is true, were able to cause this mountain to erupt with magma and lava that killed many in the surrounding area. It is quite possible that their powers are strong enough that they would be able to overcome whatever locks you've placed on your vaults.
That is concerning, for sure. Look, I'm not gonna stop you from going on without me, but I think you'd be well set to take me with you. Give me a couple of hours. I just need to close my eyes, and maybe if you're willing, you'll go on down this tunnel without me. And if you find some of my kin, have them bring me some of the dwarven drink. That'll replenish me.
I see. It would be nice to have a guide and companion on this journey. Yes, your darken axe, I will go down this tunnel and I will try to find your kin. I will return in as quickly a time as I may.
Right, and while you're gone, I'll do my best to rest up and be ready when you return.
Xarfal Brightwind is going to get up and he's going to head down the tunnel towards the dwarven dormitories. He walks for maybe 20 minutes and he sees ahead of him as he's coming down the tunnel this flickering light, and he lowers down his torch as he draws closer and closer, and he merges into this massive cavern. He is beset with a similar sight to what he saw in the previous cavern. Instead of magma falling from the ceiling, there appears to be a vein of it that has broken through the side wall, and there is a flowing river of magma burning its way through this dwarven dormitory cavern. There are stone houses close to where the magma came through the walls that are in ruins. And again, more of that ash appears in different places. But unlike the Great Hall, there is a flurry of activity going on here, as there are soot-covered, burn-covered dwarves rushing around trying to pull people out of rubble. Like, it looks as though some of these tall, towering tenements of stone have crumbled and are crushing dwarves, and there are some dwarves with pickaxes who are trying to pick away the stones and pull them apart. And Xarfal sees this scene, and a dwarf comes running by him and sees him and stops and sort of gawks at him for a second and then says, "You, orc, what you doing down here?"
I am looking for aid for one of your kin, a Yora Darganax. He is wounded just down that way, but it seems as though there is a great turmoil here.
Yeah, you could say that right. Lava just came right through the walls. Darkanax, you say? Well, this family's over at the Great Forge now. They're not here. Gods of Stone, his cousins are over on that other side of that molten river. Sorry, friend, I don't know if there's much I can do for you.
He asked for some dwarven drink.
The dwarf kind of raises an eyebrow and says,
"You're to ask for the dwarven drink? Well, sorry, friend, but we don't have much in the way of that right now. What we do have is going to those crushed by those buildings over there, so I wish I could stay and talk, but I gotta go."
I understand. I wish that I could stay and help you, but Yora and myself are on a different path.
Whatever, friend, but good luck to you.
And the dwarf hurries off. Xarfal spends a moment taking in this sight, and then he turns around and he goes back down the tunnel. He gets back and he sees that you're now soothed by the salves on his burns, has fallen into a slumber. And he crouches down and he looks at this dwarf and realizes that for a dwarf, he looks relatively young. He has dark hair that is cut fairly short and a beard that is braided and well kept, aside from the sort of soot and ash and blood that is currently lathered in it. And Xarfal sits down to contemplate his next steps. A few hours pass, and your Darkenax starts awake, opens his eyes to see Xarfal studying him. Yor goes,
What are you looking at?
I was simply waiting for you to waken, friend Yora. I don't know how to share this with you, but it appears the cataclysm has come to your domain as well, beyond just the Great Hall. There's a river of lava flowing through your dormitory, and some of the tenements have fallen.
What do you mean? My kin?
They are on the other side of that river. Don't worry, I spoke to a dwarf who was there, but he told me they had nothing that they could spare and that they were far too busy and short on supplies for this dwarven drink. Tell me, I always thought the dwarven drink was ale, but the way that he spoke and the way that you have spoken, it seems as though it is something different.
Dwarves drink ale. That much is for sure. But the dwarven drink is a curative, a restorative, to bring us back to hardiness.
Ah, I understand. I apologize that my news is not better, and I understand if you wish to go and help your kin, but I must continue on.
I understand. I want to go help my kin, but I fear what these mages might want to do with the artifacts in our vault. So, no, I'll be coming with you.
Very good. It has been a few hours since last we spoke. Do you feel well enough to rise?
With a groan, your Darkenax stands, stretches a little bit, picks up his axe, and says,
Well, I don't feel quite right, but I'm good enough to walk, and I'm good enough to fight. Let's go find those mages, see what their intentions are for the Dwarven Kingdom's artifacts.
Xarfal stands as well, reaches out a hand and rests it on the dwarf's shoulder and says,
I promise you this, Yora Darkenax. When we find these mages, we will ask them questions about why this happened, and if they are the cause, we shall make them pay.
Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures, and thanks so much to Tabletop Audio for the lovely ambient sounds and music throughout the episode. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word, and if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, I'm at Errant Solopod on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.